What's up, mobile gamers? It's Johns or Gigs, and we're gonna do a tier list today. And I actually went ahead and put everything together with my spare hand because I cut my real hand, the one I use all the time. So basically, it's pretty similar to where we had everything last time I did the tier list last season. So I didn't really see a lot of changes. I think there is a possibility if they give Johnny a small buff, he might go up. Um, and honestly, with Diggy having her second ultimate and Yaw having her second ultimate now, they're both just better in general. And the only thing I would really do is say, like, Vincent is probably a tier lower just because you have to pay for him, right? So I'll keep him in C just for simplicity and all that kind of stuff. Um, I want to kind of have him in a lower tier in general, just because your average player is not going to spend the money or the resources to get Vincent. It's just not worth it. You can honestly probably build the whole roster all the way up before being able to afford Vincent with your in-game currency and stuff like that. So we're basically just going to talk about this. That way, I'm not having to move everybody around and stuff like that. So if you want to skip this video, that's totally cool. I'll give you guys reasons why everybody is, where they're at. And I guess we'll probably start with Aletta. I can use my good hand here to kind of move her around just a bit, but I have her in A tier instead of S because your average player is not going to be that crazy with Aletta. You know what I mean? If you look at her in like the high tier, she's definitely S plus, maybe even OP. But unfortunately, her second ultimate is garbage now. It used to be really good, and now it sucks, which is never really that much fun. And then also, the average player is not going to be able to jump around with her passive a lot. I struggle to use it just because I like to use it to kind of juke around the enemy, but I have to tap it with the same finger that moves my viewing, right? So instead of aiming at somebody, I have to choose whether I want to aim or jump because it doesn't really work very well with my control scheme anyway. So I think most of the average players, somebody who just picks up T3 Arena to see what it's like and have some fun, they're not going to do crazy good with the letter. They're still going to do pretty good. Um, but I think you're going to find that Shell is a little bit easier to use in terms of, hero to hero for the average player. And, they're going to find a lot more uses out of Shell, and she's going to be a little bit more comfortable because the rewind, you really have to think about how you use it because you don't get to choose where you go back to. You just go backwards. And Shell, she's a little bit better because you get the same invincibility as Aletta, but you can choose where you go. So you can actually run to a health pack, um, run behind your tank, that kind of thing. So I think Shell has a little bit more flexibility for the average player. So that's why I'd kind of put her above Aletta. That's what I'm personally kind of sitting on as far as that ranking goes. And then I guess we can talk about Vincent a little bit more. He's really good. Um, if you have him, it's insane. It really is insane how expensive he is. He's actually legitimately probably $200. I think is like the lowest you could spend. Maybe 150 if you get like super super lucky. And most people are not going to get that lucky, unfortunately. Um, Most people are going to try to get him and they will fail. It's just not going to work for him. And he's not very good. Even if you like, okay, let's say you have a ton of money to burn. You know what I mean? And you're like, I'm not going to get any skins. I'm going to get Vincent. He's not really that good. He's pretty much garbage for the average player. Um, but on high level, he's really good. So I'm going to keep him in C because, B is average and he's below average because you have to buy him, you have to pay to get his passive. And then even after that, the average player is still not going to be able to use him very well. And he kind of like falls into that same way that Kazuma is very, very difficult to play. And most players are going to be better at shooting you than you are at avoiding their fire because he doesn't move very fast in the air. I think if they changed, gave him like a 50% movement buff or a 100% movement buff or however the percentages work out so he's twice as fast or something like that, maybe a third. as fast as he is now. So he's faster, then that would be nice. If he could move well in the air, then it would be better. Or if you could stay in the air longer, it would be better. But right now, you basically go up into the air and you're a sitting duck, and he doesn't do enough damage to justify, peeking out from behind that corner and taking to the sky. And a lot of the times, what you need is a second charge of his tactical in order to make him useful. He still doesn't have his second ultimate that I can remember. His second ultimate is pretty good. But his first is, like, you need his first in order to make his kit good, but it doesn't come back. It doesn't have a good cooldown on it. So you're basically sitting there and you're going to take to the sky, and you need to use the ultimate so you can get your cooldown back and get some damage in, but you don't have it. And I think that's honestly what is really setting him apart from the other flankers, is he's just unreliable. Even if you're the best Cosmo player in the world, you're still going to have a hard time against the average player who just looks up and shoots at you. You can get some surprise stuff going if somebody's coming around the corner and you jump up into the air so that you're above them when they come around the corner so they don't see you. I mean, you definitely can do some plays like that, but I don't think it's going to be enough for me to move him up, in my opinion. So, let's go with Johnny Jet. We'll just go up. Since we've talked about Kazuma and Vincent, we'll just go up to Johnny Jet. And this is the same reason I don't think his ult is going to be that crazy, because it's a really good ultimate. His second ultimate is going to be awesome. His first ultimate does decent damage. It's very easy to avoid. You can only place it in one spot, so it doesn't have enough radius. You have to basically put it right on top of them in order for it to be effective and get that kill. So his ult's bad. His second ultimate's going to be awesome, but it's the same problem that Kazuma has with his ultimate. You need the ultimate to make the character good, and it doesn't come back fast enough. Hopefully, it actually will do a good amount of damage when it explodes, but the healing factor is really what you need, because they have just nerfed him and nerfed him and nerfed him, and it's crazy. He's so easy to counter, you guys. A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, Johnny, you can't see him, and he heals, but he does not heal at all. Barely at all. Honestly, you probably can't even notice it. If you stay in the puddle the entire time, I don't even think you can get to from 0 to half. Not even sure if you can. It does not heal you very much. It's bad. Straight up, it's bad. The healing's terrible. The puddle's not big enough for you to actually use it to move around in so that you don't get shot. And you only have one. You guys, I know a lot of people are saying he's crazy strong, right? A good Johnny Jet is good, but still, that's just average. That's in that B category. I would say this tier list is the one with the biggest gaps between the tiers. S to A is not a very big gap. It's pretty minimal. But that A to B and that B to C is very pronounced in terms of flankers. It's very much so a tier list that you can't just jump from tier to tier very easily like I say you can in a lot of my videos. He's just, all you have to do is, if you have an AoE, shoot at the puddle, and you'll get damage, or you'll mark him, or you'll reveal him with Hunter or Hua Ling. Like, there's probably a majority, half the roster, that can counter his puddle. And on top of that, it's going to turn into a Johnny Rant video. Are you ready for this? You only have one. You only have one. You jump, you're there. Unless they see you leave the puddle, then they know exactly where you are. And if you leave the puddle, you're exposed, and you don't get that health back. So there's very little benefit to his puddles. You basically have to use them as almost like a movement option to set up a position, stay in there for a little bit, even though you don't need the health, and sneak attack, right? You have to change your playstyle from what he used to be. And to be honest with you, I don't think it's good for his kit. So we'll talk about that in just a sec. But having one puddle is terrible. So the second Johnny jumps, all I have to do is look at where he lands, and whoever I'm playing shoot near the puddle, and I'm going to get him. I mean, unless you're playing like Yaw and you have half your ammo left and you shoot and miss, I guess. But most of the time, you have AoE heroes, heroes who can scan, heroes who can silence his ability so it doesn't work. You're not going to get the usefulness out of Johnny that you need. And this is where his gun comes into play, because you're sitting here and you're thinking, okay, there's got to be something good about his kit. And honestly, there's not. You have his gun, which is decent, but then you look at his other ability, his little turret guy, the ball, you just throw it, it sticks to a surface and kind of shoots a beam. It's one shot. It literally has no health. It has like 30 health or something like that. So any of the heroes can just turn, take it out, and you're done. Unless you're already taking damage and he throws it out and you have to look in a different direction, maybe. But for the most part, you need it to secure kills, and it's going to get destroyed by stray shots half the time. Half the time, I'll throw it down, and unless you place it absolutely perfectly, it'll get shot up by the enemy. Easy. Just, oh, there it is. Boom. And he doesn't have enough to capitalize on it, like I mentioned before. I guess it's kind of a nice tactical. I would say it's decent. But the problem is the health isn't very good, the damage isn't very good, and Johnny himself doesn't have the kit that lends itself to the actual ability, right? If you could stay cloaked and throw it out, dude, insane. It'd be insane. It'd be so good. The problem is your whole kit works around surprise attacks, right? If you're in the Veil and you toss out your turret, your drone, whatever you want to call it, it decloaks you. So they know where you're at. So not only do they see it, they see you. So most of the time, you're going to throw it out and get yourself killed because they see you. They'll just kill you and then get the turret later because it doesn't do very much damage. If it would like maybe break shields or do more damage, or if you could stay cloaked while you use it, he's really in a good spot to where he needs that buff to be any like worthwhile at all. I would say don't even try playing Kazuma or Vincent unless you're trying to have fun. You can play Johnny if you want. If you're good with him, then he will be good to play. You know what I mean? But even then, if you're going to take him into ranked, you have to be careful. And that's where his gun comes into play, right? You want that turret to deal that extra damage because you can't one-clip anybody. I guess technically you can one-clip Vincent, right? Whatever, technically, right? None of these other flankers they have too much health. You can't one-clip them with Johnny. Even if you get that little the bonus tick damage where he fills up that bar and it does an extra bit of damage when it fills up completely. Even with that, you can't one-clip any of these heroes. Not a single one. Unless they already have like some health down or somebody gets a stray shot or you have the turret, right? So you rely on the turret to get kills, but it removes your camo in order to throw it out. Not only that, it's easy to destroy and it doesn't do very much damage. So he's basically on a crutch the entire time you're playing with him. It's literally, if you're playing a team that's already better than you, don't pick Johnny. Even if they're abysmal and your team's clearly better, you can pick Johnny and then, it's not as big of a deal because your team can pick up your slack. But the average player is going to get really pissed off at Johnny because you're going to die. You have to invest time to learn how to play Johnny. And the average player is not going to chill out. Most people, maybe they have an hour or two to game a day, max, right? Let's say you just get on a couple times a day, couple matches. You're not going to want to spend that time with Johnny when you have literally probably all the other four flankers. You can spend time and get good at them, and you'll get way more. Even with Aletta, a half-skilled Aletta will beat a good Johnny half the time. I'm not even joking. So for the average player, I don't think he's worth the time that it takes to get good at him when you can just spend half the time getting good at one of these other flankers and maybe, putting yourself into other roles where you don't have to worry about, maybe you want to play a healer or something like that. So we're sitting good. At 14, we're halfway through the list anyway. We'll probably try to go a little bit faster just so we can kind of get everything in for you guys so it's not a 30-minute video. We're going to kind of go over Aletta again. I know I went over a little bit, so for the most part, she's good. A is really good. I think you run A comfortably. B is kind of like, well, if the team's good, it might be a little difficult. A, outstanding. You can run both of these flankers without any troubles. They're both really good. I'm just thinking, right, the average player is going to have a little bit of trouble bridging that gap and learning. It's got a little bit higher of a skill ceiling with these two. And for that, that's why I'm putting them down there. If you're like, okay, well, let's say everybody is good, where do you put the hero? Then I would probably slide both of them up, actually, because a good player with Ya is crazy scary. A good player with Aletta is crazy scary. But again, your average player is going to have a tough time kind of getting that value out of Aletta's kit and not dying. Honestly, if you really want to look at it, you should be trading with most of your encounters, right? If you kill one of their guys and then you die, that's okay. And I think for a lot of people, that's what they shoot for. And Aletta's second ultimate just doesn't offer enough for me to say that she can do that. Uh, let's say realistically, for the average player, they're not going to do it consistently. It's going to be tough for them to move around. She doesn't have a lot of health. The rewind is kind of technical. It's just little stuff that makes it where the average player is not going to really be able to bring out her full potential. So very good. Both of them are very good. But to reach their full potential and to be that scary flanker, the average player is not going to feel as impactful with these two as they will with the S tier heroes. And that's my problem I have with Aletta. Now, Ya is a little bit different. So we're going to kind of talk about her a little bit. She's good, right? Her problem is actually her kit that's holding her back, more so than Aletta, where it's a skill ceiling. Aletta has a skill ceiling because of the hero she is. Her kit isn't the reason she has a high skill ceiling. I think even if you don't use her kit to the full ability and use all the abilities, you're an atomic where you don't use the ultimate or the tactical. Oh, that's so funny. It's so funny. He's really good. He just doesn't use the abilities, and he makes jokes about it all the time. I just thought it was funny. So, anyways, Ya is a different story, right? If you're just hanging around with Aletta and you're doing good damage, no worries. You know what I mean? If you're playing Ya, you can't do that. You need her abilities in order to do damage, in order to make an impact on the battlefield. So her skill ceiling is tied to her abilities more than her gun and the player's skill level directly. You have a shield that can reflect damage, but it can't reflect a ton. It's not like you can't reflect a whole ultimate. Like, for instance, let's say Hua Ling's ultimate, right? You can reflect one, maybe two if you time it perfectly, and the third one your shield's going to run out. So her shield's difficult to time, and not only that, it doesn't actually cover her. It only like you can shoot her feet while she has the shield up, and it'll still kill her. So I don't know if that's intentional. Um, I kind of wish it covered her feet and her head, because if you're above her and she has her shield out, you can still hit her head a little bit if you're like very careful. So also, it like when it reflects the damage, it goes wherever you're looking. So let's say you're looking at my tank when you have your shield out and I shoot you. Well, that's going to go to the tank because you're looking at the tank. So you can have, if you're facing a Ya, you have a lot more leeway if she's not looking at you with the shield. And if she is, your team can take advantage of that and shoot her in the back. So it's just tough. She has decent movement, but you can only use it once, and then it's on a 9-second cooldown. Her dash is great, but half the time I will dash and somebody else will get the kill, or my gun will auto shoot and somebody else, and it'll say that the gun got the kill rather than the dash, or somebody else got the kill rather than my dash, and it doesn't take the ability off cooldown. And I wish they would allow assists, or if you dash at somebody and they die while you're dashing, then it would count. Something like that, where it makes the recharge on the ability worthwhile, because basically half the time you dash, it's at somebody that's going to die, that's already at super low health, because that's how you get the execution and the recooldown. And a lot of the times those people are already going to die from your team. And sometimes even right before you dash, you hit a shot out and it hits at the same time your dash almost connects, and you basically steal your own kill, I guess. So it's kind of hard to explain. For those of you that have played her, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But she's so fun. Her ultimate does a lot of damage. Her second ultimate has high survivability. It's really good if you're going to grind for one and you don't really like the damage, you want more survivability. I think she can really benefit from it. But the average player is going to have trouble chaining her abilities together and finding ways to actually do damage while also not using the movement that she has. She has good movement, but if you use it for movement, you don't have it for using it for damage. So it's kind of a catch-22. It's kind of a toss-up. Um, I think we're making good time. Probably 25 minutes or so-ish. So last two. A lot of you guys are going to be crazy mad. Johnny doesn't belong up there. You can say maybe Aletta does, but right, this is the average player. And I think most people are going to use Shell instead of Aletta and find that she has everything that Aletta has, except for that vertical movement and the dashes. She has that invincibility. She has that little bit of extra damage. She has um she's more effective close range, right? Her ultimate, it does really crazy good damage if you get it by a wall, or if you want to use it for movement, you can. So she has that flexibility. And then her second ultimate puts everybody up in the air, which is really, really good. So overall, her kit is easier to use than Aletta's. So the average player is going to be picking her up and doing better with her just in general because of how easy her abilities are to chain together and use. You're going to feel more effective. Um, you don't have to worry about timing. Like I said, you can just hit her tactical, you're invincible, and you can run away or reposition. Or sometimes if you just stay where you're at, sometimes it will trick them. Sometimes, not all the time. It's kind of big brain. You got to know that they're going to fall for it in order to use it. But she's crazy good, crazy insane. There's a reason Atomic mains her instead of Aletta because she's just that strong. She's, in my opinion, the average like span of players. If you're going to graph every player that plays Shell and then graph every player that plays Aletta, you're going to see Aletta go from like low to super super high when you get that skill ceiling and they actually reach it. Shell is going to be very like middle to above average the entire time, and then maybe a little bit of a climb at the very top. So overall, she's a lot easier to use. She has a little bit more utility because her kit is straightforward, and the average player is going to be able to take advantage of those openings a lot easier than they will with Aletta. Aletta has just too high of a skill ceiling for me to justifiably put her in S for the average player. Now, pros, yes, she's insane. But so is Shell. Shell is insane with the pros. And the same actually goes for Diggy. We'll talk about her in a sec. Shell has insane damage. She heals with her passive. She just has a more consistent kit for the game. Aletta's the poster child for sure, but trust me, Shell can definitely make a run for best girl, and it's really honestly more about the player than it is the hero for this ranking. So if you guys are like, well, their kits are super similar, but Aletta has more movement, totally fair, totally understand. Basically, what this amounts to for these two, they basically switch their spots. It's kind of hard to do this with my good hand. They kind of switch their spots, right? If you're good at Aletta, she goes up. If you prefer Shell, Shell goes up. That's pretty much what it amounts to. The player's going to decide how good the hero is. I feel that that's more fair in terms of where we're sitting with the rankings. And then Diggy. Oh man. Let me look here. Yeah, we'll shoot for 30 because Diggy's cracked, you guys. If you haven't tried her, please try her. Try her and Yaw. They're both very good. Diggy's insane. All right. If you play her right, you're going to just dominate. The only problem, her shotgun is inconsistent. There's a lot of times where you hit shots and you're like, what? It only did 200 damage? I'm right up in their face. What the hell? That's pretty much the only time that you're going to have a problem with Diggy and playing her at an S tier level. She has the furthest teleport in the game, aside from Damon, I guess, technically, right? Damon can shoot herself pretty far, but you have to be willing to not stick to a surface, which is the main gimmick of the ability. So she has the furthest teleport, so she's going to be able to get where other flankers can't very fast, can actually teleport up into places, down into places, into a doorway, all kinds of stuff. She's insane with her teleport. A lot of people don't know this, but you can it goes so far. You can actually on most maps stand behind a doorway where you see where you're going to teleport and teleport safely because the enemy can't see you. And I know a lot of people say, well, oh, you can see where she's going to appear. Half the time, you really can't, especially in the heat of battle. You're not going to turn around and be like, oh, the Diggy's teleporting. She's teleporting outside your line of sight for the most part. And that's what makes her so dangerous. Her shark form's crazy. It does take headshot damage from Osas and Hualing. So, like, you can still one-shot her sometimes. But overall, the movement is insane. The healing is exactly what Johnny needs, right? It should be similar to Diggy's healing. I think if they bumped it up to the same healing, Johnny would be better. And so she has great movement, great healing. Again, great movement, right? So, like, you have a teleportation to get out of trouble, and then you also have the shark form to help you in those 1v1s or in close quarters. So the movement is different in both of these abilities, but it highlights why she is so good. Her ultimates, one is crowd control, area control. You're going to use it and box them in, and they have nowhere to go unless they want to not only take the damage, but it traps them for that split second where they won't be able to get out. And if you play it right, you can basically take a whole team, trap them in the box, and they have nowhere to go, and it's an easy squad wipe. Her first ultimate does insane damage. Maybe not insane, but it's really, really good. And it also is kind of a get out of jail free card because if you use it when you're low health, unless they can manage to somehow hit you with like AoE or something, you're going to use it, maybe get one or two kills, and then you can, run away after that because it shocks them and makes their field of vision messed up a little bit. It kind of like disorients them, I guess you could say. So overall, I think she's probably one of the better heroes for that skill ceiling. You can pick her up and do great with her right off the gate. Easy, super easy. She's basically she would be the best hero if her shotgun was more consistent and you didn't get headshot damage from the shark form. I would say she'd probably rival Aletta and be better than Shell. But unfortunately, you have to have some balancing in there. And I think she's personally S tier for the average player. She's cracked for really good players. And honestly, the only thing that she doesn't have that all these top players are going to say is she can't be invincible like Aletta with her rewind or Shell with her first active. So she's missing out on that key invincibility aspect that the other two have. So I can see why some people would put her lower or would maybe not give her as much credit. But trust me, she's really good. Play her, try her. There's a reason I play her all the time, even though I would say I'm probably really good with Yaw and Shell just as much as I am with her. She's just so fun. And a lot of people, as this is kind of, it's not anything to do with her kit, right? A lot of people, when they see Diggy, will be like, well, it's not a Shell. It's not an Aletta. It's not a Johnny. I don't have to worry about where Johnny's hiding. They'll see her and they'll be like, well, no, nothing to worry about there. And a lot of people don't expect you to be good with Diggy. It's very scary. If you guys have faced a strong Diggy, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The team doesn't watch for her. I don't know why. Everybody expects her to not be good. Some players that pick her up are not good with her. I'll straight up be honest with you. They teleport into the fray and die. They don't use her shark ability very, very often or at all. She's one of those heroes that the community doesn't see as strong just yet. So it gives you more opportunity to be good with her and make mistakes. So even if you don't do crazy, insane things with her, they will underestimate you. So definitely check her out. She's probably one of the only heroes that's like that, where you see her and you're like, nah, it's just a Diggy. It's not a Shell. Nothing to worry about. It's not an Aletta. I don't have to worry about her teleporting all over the battlefield. But she's really good, and trust me, you can really, really, get that sneak up on somebody, or do a surprise attack, get that damage off that they didn't think you were going to be able to get if the shotgun's consistent, right? So she's kind of like a sleeping giant. You know what I mean? Like, she's a sleeper pick for sure. And I really encourage you guys to try her out, and at least try her out before you tell me I'm stupid, right? Um, I think overall, we're just going to basically keep them where they're at. They pretty much all got better this season. Didn't have any nerfs or buffs. Had a few second ultimates. So I think this is the one that's going to change the least. And I think that S to A range is close. And then you see the gap from A to B, from B to C, and from C to wherever. That's really where you're going to see it. So I think this is kind of the most um, unbalanced of the classes. I think it's very clear that your top dogs are Aletta, Shell, and Diggy, and it's not really close at all when you compare to the other heroes. So let me know what you guys think. Hopefully my hand heals up enough that I can play some matches in my next video so that we don't have to do back to back to back tier lists. But I do enjoy doing tier lists as well. So no worries. We're going to get the videos out to you guys, and hopefully your holidays were good, and hopefully you got some good Christmas presents. So that's the video. Drop a comment what you think, and we'll see ya in the next one.